All right, so you guys know quite a lot about ants already. I had you share with your partner, you did a quick write, and we listed a few things. We know that ants eat a lot of food. Some carry food home. They live in holes in the dirt. Ants are small, and some ants are called fire ants. So what I want to go over today is some information you need to know when we read our selection to help you really understand it. So I heard some of you say, one of you said they live in holes in the dirt. So here's the dirt. And sometimes you'll see a little mound like this, and sometimes you won't. It just depends, right? It just depends. And always in the middle of the little mound, there's a little hole. Okay? Now, we just don't call it a hole in the dirt. It's got a special name that you need to know. And we call where ants live an anthill. Can you guys say that with me? Anthill. So, as I said, sometimes it looks just like a little flat hole. Sometimes there might be a little mound, but where they live is called an anthole. All right, now, inside that anthole, guess what? They work really hard, and they make a lot of things called tunnels. Okay? A lot of tunnels. All right? So, underneath the ground, you don't see all this, but there are lots and lots and lots of tunnels. And inside the tunnel, guess what are there? Ants. Yeah, a bunch of ants. Lots of ants. Lots of ants in there. Okay, so now here's something about ants. A lot of them live in there, so guess what? They have to work together. And they work together, and just like we, like at home, have different jobs, ants have different jobs. So one of the jobs that an ant could have is they need to take care of cocoons. Say that word with me. Cocoons. So take a look. And I guess the closest thing we could say a cocoon is, it's like an ant egg. So if you think of an ant egg, that's what a cocoon is. All right? So what are these ants taking care of? Cocoon. So they take care of the cocoons. All right? Now, another job that ants have, when an ant comes out of a cocoon, it doesn't look like an ant yet. Now see, there's the worker ants. Do you guys see that? But see how this looks different than the cocoon? They call these larvae. Say that with me. Larvae. And larvae means more than one. If there was only one of this, it would be larva. But they look different, right? Okay. So, another job, other ants, stay with me, friends. Other ants take care of the, how do you say this word again? Larvae. Say it with me. Larvae. That means more than one. And that's a job there for another one of the ants. So we have ants that take care of the cocoons. We have ants that take care of the larvae. We have ants, like you said, that go out and find food. And guess what? Some ants have to keep digging tunnels. Because the queen is way down somewhere in the colony, and she's the only one that lays eggs. And as the eggs hatch, they become workers, all right? And guess what we call a group of ants? We just don't call them, hey, there's a group of ants. We call them a colony. Has anyone heard that word before? Yeah, a colony of ants. So, just like it's a herd of cattle, right, or a flock of geese, we call it what? A colony of ants. So, all together, we call what's inside the anthill a colony of ants. Now, there's so many jobs for ants to do. Here's a nice big picture of a big ant. They need to communicate. Just like at home. How do you know if Mom wants you to take out the trash? How do you know if Mom wants you to take out the trash, Nicholas? What does she do? She talks to you. She communicates, right? Because the trash isn't going to be taken out magically. Okay, as a mom, I wish. Okay, stay with me. Ants communicate with each other, but they don't talk using words. They have on the top of their head, well, you're close. One is called an antenna. Two of them are called, ready for this? No, it's not antennas. It's an irregular plural. Antennae. Say that with me. Antennae. If I'm talking about one single one, it's an antenna, but they have two like waving stalks. Do you see them here? And they rub those together with other ants to let them know what they're doing. Like maybe they need to know what job they're doing, or maybe they need to know where the food is to go help them. All right? Now, one other thing about ants that I want you to know before we get started to read. Just like we communicate, just like we have different jobs, just like we live together, there are different communities of ants. I just named them ant communities. No big deal. I call them ant communities. And guess what? You can find ant communities almost everywhere around the world. That's a lot, isn't it? But in our selection that we're going to read today, I'm going to ask you to hold your question for a minute, okay? In the selection we're going to read today, we're going to visit some special places. Are you ready to find out the ants that we're going to visit? We're going to visit, first of all, we're going to visit some ants in New York. And New York is part of the USA, and it's over here in North America. So we're going to visit some ants in New York. So there'll be ants from New York. Okay, then we're going to visit ants. I'll just wait because there's a lot of talking. We're going to find out about ants that live in what we call Central America. And Central America is this little tiny part right there that's between North America and South America. And we are going to find about ants from Panama. Can you say that? Panama. And ants from Costa Rica. Yeah, those are two. Okay, those are two small countries there. Then we're also going to meet some ants that live in South America. And they live in a large country right here. And that country is called Brazil. Can you say that with me? Brazil. Okay. Now, we're just not going to stay on this side. Remember when we did our glyph and we had the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere? Well, guess what? We're going to visit some ants in the Eastern Hemisphere too. We're going to learn about ants in East Africa. Africa is this big continent here. So that's East Africa. And then we're also, I'm excited, you're going to learn about ants that come from one of the places I'm hoping one day, keep my fingers crossed, I can travel to. This continent down here is called Australia. Australia. And we're going to learn about ants from there. So, you can see we're going to kind of travel around the world in our selection, aren't we? Okay. So, here's something really important. Before we read, it's always good for us to know why we're reading. We call that the purpose for reading. I want to give you a reason why. I'm setting you up for success by saying, hey, this is what we're reading for today. So are you ready? It looks big, but I just had to write it big. I know you guys can do this. Here's the purpose of why we're reading this selection today. The selection's called Ants. Okay, it says, you listen first, follow along with me. It says, purpose for reading. Read this selection to find out at least 4 ways ants do something that we do. And choose one community of ants. Remember how we talked we're going to look at different ants around the world? Choose one community of ants and infer how they got their name. How many of you, give me a thumbs up if you remember how to infer. What do we do when we infer? Remember our song? Infer, infer, taking a much deeper look. Infer, infer, finding something that's not in the book. Who wants to share with us what does that mean to infer? What do we do when we infer, Alyssa? Clues, right. We use clues from the text. Could be words, could be pictures. And maybe what we already know about ants to infer. So that's what I'm asking you to do here. And we've practiced that all year. All right. So in a moment, I'm going to excuse you back to go sit at your desk, and we're going to get out our anthologies. And here's something that you need to know. This is the purpose. How am I going to know if you do that? In fact, over on my language board, how do I know if you do something? We do a what? MJI. MJI?
My job is.
So I'm hoping that after we read through Ants, our selection, that you'll be able to share either orally with a partner or maybe in writing, such as a quick write, one-way answer similar to us. Similar means what? The same. And then the second part, which is our and over here, you're going to have to write to me. You're going to choose a group of ants and their names, and I want you to use evidence from the text to tell me how that ant got their name. Feel like you might be able to do that as we read along? All right.